Friends, again we are here to take you through some more metaphysical poetry, as we have been discussing metaphysical poets Vinod ji for last 2 episodes.
Yes, Rajeshji, when you and me, we did post-graduation in English literature.
Yeah.
This poem was prescribed.
Yes.
And I am sure that anybody who does MA English literature, he or she is bound to come across this celebrated poem by Andrew Marvell.
Yes, to his coy mistress, Andrew Marvell. It was written maybe around between 1649 and 1660 somewhere.
Andrew Marvell is one of the celebrated metaphysical poets.
And yes, this poem
is very important in the sense that it illustrates all the important features of metaphysical poetry.
Yes.
Coyness is nothing but it is a shyness. When basically his mistress is shy, right? She is reluctant to respond to his love proposal. So at that occasion, he writes this poem to
convince her,
his mistress.
To convince her that they should not refrain from lovemaking, and how he convinces her is really fantastic. It's an argumentative style of metaphysical poetry, and the images he uses, the conceits he uses are really remarkable.
Right, Rajesh, I have heard that this poem illustrates one of the important principles of logic.
Yeah, of course. Well, we can call it, some people have called it syllogism, some people have called it, conditional argument. Actually, strictly speaking, Vinodji, you will not be able to fit this argument in the formal logic.
Okay.
But the argument goes like this: if X, Y, Z were there, then ABC. But since X, Y, Z is not there, then don't stick to ABC, right? But actually, logically speaking, if you ask a logician, it will not be a convincing. It will be called the fallacy of denying the antecedent.
But I have heard that some people call it that it is a syllogism.
Yeah, syllogism.
Syllogism.
Well, you can call it a sort of syllogism, but not a hypothetical argument. Or you will have to frame it in this way: that if and only if X, Y, Z is there, then ABC. If and only if, right? Argument of equivalence, we call it. Since X, Y, Z is not there, then ABC is not there. So logical equivalence: if and only if this, then that. But since this is not there, then that is not.
To put it in the simpler words or in the context of poem, I can perhaps paraphrase like this.
Yeah.
If we would have enough time
If
at
and
our
only
disposal.
if and only if, right?
Yes, only and if we had enough time at our disposal, but we do not have that much time, life is small, and therefore, lady, your coyness is not justified.
Correct. If and only if we had an infinite time at our disposal, all the time and the world at our disposal, then this coyness lady were no crime.
Exactly. That's how the poem starts.
Yeah.
Abruptly, that if we had enough time at our disposal, and then the lady, your coyness would not have been a crime.
Then what would have happened? I would have made love to you very slowly, one age for each of your parts.
Then we could have sat together and decided which way to walk.
Maybe you by the Ganges and I by this river in London. What's its name, Ranji?
The river Hamburg, right?
Yeah, Hamburg.
In Germany.
Yeah, in Germany. Yeah,
right.
Germany.
So just to think, in those days when the means of the transport were not there, he says that had we enough time at our disposal, lady, you could have ventured as far as to Ganges in India,
and
I could have sat back
there,
here in and would have waited for you, and then perhaps I could have started loving you just 10 years before the deluge, the great flood which is mentioned in Bible.
Yeah, and then you could have taken your own time. You could have refused still to be, convinced. You could have refused my proposal.
And then I would have admired you like anything. I would have required 100 years to admire each of your eyes.
Yeah, and 200 for each of your breasts.
And 30,000 more years, he says, I require to admire your rest of the body. And each of your organ is so fascinating that I require an age to admire it.
And I would not have loved at a lesser rate.
Again, this type of hyperbolic language
Yeah.
is nothing but it is expression of metaphysical way of law.
Yeah. And then all the time in the world, so there was no urgency. The point is, there would have been no urgency. You could have taken your own time.
You are being quiet
Yeah.
would have been justified. Okay, you would not have responded to my law advances, right? Because we would have enough time. I could have waited for you endlessly.
But unfortunately,
And
this
before that, he said that I could have waited for you till the conversion
of the Jews, till just before the doomsday, right? Just before the doomsday, till the end of the time, I could have waited.
And
for
he
you.
says, "You are lady. You are such a great lady. You deserve all this appreciation. I'm not ready to love you at lower rate."
So this all brings out his love,
His
intensity of his love for his lady, right? And then he says, but unfortunately, this is not the case. But this is not the case,
Yes.
right? And I hear the murmur of the time, chariot of the time, winged chariot of the time, who is nearing us, right? And it's closing in upon us, right?
And finally, the death will come upon us.
Before us lie the vast deserts of eternity. So in this way, the death will seal us. It will seal our fate.
And then very, very brilliant metaphysical argument is put forth by the poet.
Yeah.
He says, lady, if you continue to show this type of shyness,
Reluctance.
ultimately what will happen? You will be reduced to dust at the time of the death, and in the grave then worms will violate your long preserved chastity.
Virginity.
Yeah.
The virginity which you are so carefully preserved, you have not compromised with it. The mere worms will enter your body.
And I believe
Right.
that this is a very powerful argument.
Haunting lines. It's a very powerful argument. If we waste our entire lives in nothingness.
Just we refuse the love proposals and simply we stick to the imaginary idea of being virgin.
Yeah. So ultimately, it just mingles with the dust. The body's my lust will also be reduced to dust. He says.
And then he says, he very ironically he says, grave is fine and private place.
Yeah, these are world famous lines, Vinodji. The grave is a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace.
These lines are really evocative, right? To make love in this world, you require time and space, you require privacy. But when you are buried in the grave, there you have all the privacy of the world. Nobody is going to disturb you in the grave. But the irony is that there you cannot make love. And thus he's trying to convince his choir mistress that she should respond to his love advances.
And this is a very secular conception of death. He does not indicate the afterlife. The prevalent belief even today is that of afterlife and we will meet in heaven and all those things. He says no. This is the earthly existence, and at death seals it. We are not we after death. We dissolve into dust. So in the grave or after death, beyond the grave, all these things are they are annihilated. They don't exist at all, right?
So this is a complete negation of Platonic concept of love.
Definitely, total negation of the number one Platonic conception of love. Number two, all the religions, theories of afterlife. We derive consolation. Many of us derive consolation from the thought of afterlife. If we can't achieve something here, at least afterlife is there. There the justice will prevail. There all the things will be there. Doomsday, the justice will be done, and all those things, right?
But Andrew Marvell does not speak of any of such things.
And it was remarkable at that time. In 1650s.
Yes.
To
When
speak
the
of
religion
such,
was a very dominant force.
Yeah.
The Enlightenment had just begun.
Yeah.
And towards the end of the poem, the last part of the poem is therefore.
Yeah. The conclusion. He arrives at the conclusion.
We do not have a lot of endless time at our disposal.
Therefore, let us make haste while we can. Let us make love while we can.
Exactly.
And with renewed vigor, with utmost intensity, let us love one another.
Because the time will ultimately devour us all.
Therefore,
Before the time devours us,
we should devour the time.
Yes, because we cannot stop the sun from moving, and therefore let us make the sun run.
It's called carpe diem, Avinaji, in Latin.
Mhm.
The carpe diem poetry or carpe diem philosophy, make haste while you can. Make the hay while the sun shines.
Exactly. That is to make the best use of the present.
Yeah. Because afterwards we don't know.
Exactly.
And he says afterwards there is oblivion, total oblivion. Grave, in Hindi there is a शेर,
Yeah.
कि पाँव फैलाता हूँ तो दीवार को सर लगता है. तूने मुझे कब्र से कम दी है ज़मीन.
Wow.
You have given me my land which is even narrower than the grave. And if I spread my legs, my head hits the wall.
Exactly. That there is no space in
Yeah.
this world for the expression of love, for the expression of
या खुदा तूने
emotions.
मुझे कब्र से कम दी है ज़मीन. Oh God, you have given me the land which is narrower than the grave, right? पाँव फैलाता हूँ तो दीवार से सर लगता है.
Yes. So, friends, this is a wonderful poem. If you read this original poem, you would definitely enjoy some of the lines.
And
the
some
beat,
critics, Vinodji,
props.
Ajib, I mean, their criticism, I could find it strange. They have equated this poem, they have not taken it literally, maybe, even they have not taken at it symbolically. They have equated this with the ironical expression of the futility of the lust and futility of physical love.
I do not think that there is any type of ironical expression. Neither the poem.
Maybe they have taken the hyperboles which are there in the initial stanza.
But I think that when he says that I require hundreds of years, thousands of years to admire the beauty of the lady, we have to interpret these kind of statements
Yeah.
to show
The intensity.
the intensity of the love. When you love someone, and really, if that person gets that much time, person has the desire to admire one's beloved for such a long time.
Yeah.
That's quite possible.
But those critics have taken them to mean the utter absurdity of his expressions, and they have also taken the lack of any reference or belief in the afterlife and religious thing to simply negate this poem as just meaning the ironical denunciation of the profane love.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the intensity, it shows the grand desire of the poet to admire the beauty of his beloved.
Yes.
Why we should belittle his intensity? There is no reason at all.
Yeah. And there is no compulsion to believe in the afterlife. And the argument is sound enough. If you take it the syllogistic argument or the equivalence, logical equivalence argument, then the argument is valid as well as sound. That best in this life, this world approach.
Now, if you stretch
Yeah.
the basic argument of this poem,
Yeah.
even the beyond the context of this law,
Yeah.
and if you apply it to anything,
Yeah.
see, the world is like that. If we
Yes.
had enough time, we could have waited,
Yes.
but we do not have the time,
Therefore-
therefore we have to do the things whatever we like, whether it's a law or
Anything.
work or your hobby
Yeah.
or pursuit of art, anything.
Anything.
We
So
have to-
Kabir has said,
Yes.
the famous Indian poet and Sant Kabir, in 1518 he died. So in 1400s he has proclaimed, काल करे सो आज कर, आज करे सो अब, पल में परलय होएगी, बहुरी करे सो कब.
Whatever you want to do tomorrow, do it today.
Today.
Whatever you want to do today, do it right now.
Now.
Who knows, the doom will fall upon us in an instant.
Yeah. And then when will you do it afterwards? So
Argument is the same.
Argument is the same, and we don't say that Kabir was not the believer in afterlife. He was, but still he said.
So it is the recognition of the present moment. Because
And the importance of this earthly life. See, this world approach, what we call it. Number one, we know of this world only. So even if there are hundreds of lives afterwards, number one, we don't know about them. Number two, even if they are, it does not belittle this present life.
And when we will be living those other world lives, at
We'll-
that time we will do whatever is expected of us.
We'll not even remember this one.
Exactly.
So none of the lives can be belittled if there are multiple lives and multiple births. Maharishi Aurobindo, in his famous great epic poem, Savitri, it is equivalent to the epics of Homer, equivalent to the epics of Ramayana and Mahabharata.
Yes.
In that epic, Savitri's entire point, entire argument, she brings back her husband from the jaws of death. Not only the jaws of death, he has died. So from Yama, the god of death, she brings back her husband, and the god of death tries to persuade her, saying that you will enjoy the eternal bliss, both of you, in the next world. She says, no, I want him here on this earth. Heaven should descend to this earth.
Exactly, and this is really important, and it takes us beyond the context of this poem.
Yes.
How we can bring about heaven on the earth. Heaven is happy, delighted, cheerful life for all. So that will take us into the realm of social sciences, political
Yes.
philosophy, right? How we can create heaven on the earth. Grand narratives I've been talking about, whether it's Marxism, capitalism, they all promise heaven for all on the earth. So that is altogether different matter.
Yeah.
So Rajeshji, but you have very scholarly dealt with this poem to my mistress by Andrew Marvell. So our listeners are curious enough to go through this poem, the text of the poem.
Definitely, it's a very
And-
simple enough. The language is very, very simple.
Yeah.
One can enjoy it on one's own.
So give us your comments that how you like these kind of discussions, and we make a promise that we'll be back soon with some other discussion so that we can communicate literature to many.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you.